All right, good afternoon from the Monsanto Water Utilization Learning Center. My name is Brian Olson, manager of the site, and I have with me Mark Ryman and the agronomist. And right here looking at our corn, we've got tassels popping out of the top, and so the corn is definitely using a lot of water at this time. You know, if we're looking at average anywhere from 0.3 to 5 inches per acre, but on some very hot days with a little bit of wind, we can get up in that 4/10 of an inch range. So from this time frame until like R2, we're using the most moisture out of the growing season, and so we've really got to watch that as we move forward. So Mark, you went out there and pulled a soil sample. And so what are we seeing from that after we've just got to done irrigating this piece of ground?
Well, so we're putting on a 1/2 inch. We were at about 50% depletion in the top 2 foot before irrigation. So on a silt loam soil, we've used about 1 inch of water, and there's still 1 inch of water to go, but we're entering into that critical time frame with the crop pollinating where we don't want to see depletion levels of 50% in the soil. So we irrigated it, and now if we look at that top foot, you know, it really forms a ball, tight ball. You're seeing staining on your fingers. So we move this up into more like the 90% plant available water, or 10% depletion. And we've even had a little bit of an effect on the second foot. We've moved that up to about 75% plant available water, 25% depletion. And that's really the zone we want to be in. Coming up to this stage, they would say you could use 50% of your soil water, which is about, like I said, 1 inch in the silt loam soil. But you really want to limit that stress at this time frame and keep it in that range of 25 to 30% depletion. So maybe you've only used a 1/2 inch or a little more out of that soil profile before you'd either refill it with irrigation or hopefully get a rain.
So if you've got limited amounts of water to put on, obviously this is the time to be getting it out, and so we have very little stress on that corn. And then as we look at how far or how deep should we really be managing water to. So again, this corn is up at the VT, and so what kind of depth are we looking at for those roots to be extracting moisture from?
We've really seen them extracting water. We've got some soil probe information showing extraction up to 3 feet, sometimes up to 4 feet. We have, seems like very good roots under the corn crop, and that's that volume of soil that we want to manage. So kind of that, I feel comfortable using that top 3 feet right now to manage your water.
And so we've got a silt loam soil out here, and so again, obviously there's some differences between sands and silts, and there's a little bit of a gradation between you know, if you got a clay content in there. But just for general guidance, what kind of how much moisture can we expect for the soil to hold with a 2 foot profile with a silt loam soil?
In 2 feet, the plant available water you'd be talking about would be about 4 inches of moisture on average. But when you start to extract that and really get it close to, you know, using all of that 4 inches of water, the crop gets very stressed. So we like to manage it above that. Maybe, you know, early in the season only using 2 inches out of those 4 inches of plant available water, and right now maybe using 1 inch, 1.5 inches out of those available 4 inches of water in that top 2 feet.
So as we mentioned, right now the corn could ultimately be using 4/10 of an inch a day, probably averaging around 3 to 0.35 inches a day, but could be using 4/10 of an inch on a hot day and can really suck out the moisture out of that profile. So as all the irrigators know, now's the time when we really got to be watching that plant and making sure that we don't have any stress as it goes into pollination and early ear development. So any final thoughts, Mark?
You know, up until now we've been very lucky. This is actually the first irrigation pass we've had to make. You know, we hit that trigger point by getting dry enough, but been very fortunate. Now we gotta, with the hot conditions, keep on top of it until we get some relief from rain or maybe cooler temperatures.
Okay, well with that, we'll shut her down, and we want to thank you for your time, and we'll talk to you in the future about other agronomic topics.
This video was produced by the Monsanto Water Utilization Learning Center.